Well, there it is. Hello, welcome to another video. This is a Warcraft 3 Reforged reaction/review of the Reforged High Elf and Blood Elf models, including Sylvanas, Anasterian, and kael'thas. So, in this Wowhead article over at wowhead.com, you can find that they say today's Warcraft 3 Reforged model preview look at some of the High Elf and Blood Elf models, including Sylvanas, Anasterian, and kael'thas. The High Elves were decimated in the Fall of Silvermoon chapter of the Path of the Damned campaign, which saw the destruction of Silvermoon, death of Ranger General Sylvanas Windrunner and High King Anasterian Sunstrider, and the resurrection of kael'thas. The Fall of Silvermoon is dramatized in the Blood Elf Heritage Armor questline, added in patch 8.1 Battle for Azeroth for World of Warcraft. In Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne, we follow the path of Silvermoon survivors, now called Blood Elves. In the Alliance campaign, Curse of the Blood Elves, here kael'thas and the surviving Blood Elves struggle with their magic addiction in the wake of the Sunwell's destruction, a quest which eventually leads him to Naga and the Illidan Stormrage. The Illidan Stormrage. So, let's begin with Sylvanas Windrunner. Now, first things first, what we can definitely say is some of these screenshots that we're getting right now look like they have a very polished look. Like, if they're not finished, they've got to be as near damn it to finished. Like, you can see there is lighting on the model, the gradient, the coloring, everything is kind of taken into account art-wise. So at least with these models, we can probably say these are as close to the finished product as we're going to get. And wow, does Sylvanas pop. Yeah. That is something else. We saw the Diablo Immortal cart and the kael'thas tricycle, which I showed off in a different video. And you could sort of see the difference between that and the original models that we saw on a previous occasion and how polished those looked. Well, this is reminding me of that. She looks something else. And even there, in her earlier, younger years, she still looks really evil. It's probably because of those giant eyes and a very pointy nose. She looks very much in control and snippy. Like, you can imagine her biting your head off if you just so much as looked at her the wrong way. Like, she's a very powerful being, Sylvanas, and she's letting you know. This is absolutely gorgeous with all of the shine, all of the polish that essentially Blizzard look like they have finished implementing. I don't truly know if this is the absolute finished model work, but let's face it, it looks pretty incredible, so I think you'd be hard-pressed to go much more than that. Moving on to the Blood Elf Engineer. We have... No, not like that. Like this. Our fantastic favourite snippety Blood Elf who thinks he's better than you, and probably is. He looks quite simple in his clothing, but he doesn't care. He prefers to design and make other things elegant and architecturally beautiful and superior. He doesn't have time for himself. Yeah, he's got his mason hammer. I'm loving the lighting. Like, they do pop out a lot more when they have the appropriate lighting. So this does do the characters a lot more justice. High Elf Peasant. So he's got a slightly different look to him. Still very similar to the Blood Elf Engineer, which is kind of how they were. But one's more of an architect. The other's more of a labourer. He definitely has those high elven qualities with the high eyebrows and the big ears. So it kind of separates him from looking too humanoid. High Elf Woman. This one looks fantastic. Sort of very noble, very grounded, but at the same time a little bit above your station. Like, if you approached her at a bar, she'd politely decline. She'd make it subtly, somewhat obvious that you are not worthy of her time. As is true High Elf tradition. Very high, nice posture. Just very good. Okay. Anasterian Sunstrider. Oh, wow. So, I really like this guy. Because he feels like a high elf that's been alive for a very long time, which he has. He's kael'thas' father. He's still somewhat youthful in his appearance, but by far wizened and more elder in comparison to other blood elves. With the grey hair and the slightly more worn skin, but he still oozes the power of strength that you would have as a young buck. And he's got a really cool weapon as well. The armor is just really awesome. Very agile, very capable. You can imagine him being like an agility hero or something. Look at that. The cape. The curl. That looks like a really difficult weapon to wield and use effectively. So bizarre. I really like this guy. So much shine and detail. Very, very cool. Now we move on to his baby boy, kael'thas. Unfortunately, the lighting does not look like it is finished here. But you kind of get a feel for how much it's going to pop and glow in certain areas. Really looking good. Just oozing so much power, kael'thas. He has like one of the coolest armor sets. Really, really neat. This one's a little dark, yes. It's got like runes on the back that you can see. So perhaps when he goes to nightclubs, he'll stand out a little bit more. So it might be specifically for that kind of purpose. Moving on to the Blood Elf Lieutenant. I really kind of like the Blood Elf's foot soldiers. Like, they just look agile but very capable. And pretty cool. Like, they're pretty similar to footmen in a way, because they got more humanistic features with that beard. They look like they're the more grounded type of high elves who have seen war and don't sort of live in pompousness that the high elves typically do. Like, they've seen the world a little bit more and they're not so out of touch. I love the sort of one-handed shield, how it feels like it could be interchangeable. You could give him all sorts of different armor sets if you really wanted to, or at least weaponry. So I feel like they just work in a lot of ways. High Elf Archmage. Now, what's the correct way to say Archmage? Because I was thinking about this as well. When I play like Heroes of Might and Magic 5 or Heroes of Might and Magic 3, I say Archangel. But in Warcraft 3, I say Archmage. I don't say Archangel. And I don't say Archmage. So I've always wondered which way it's really supposed to be said. Because I have different ways of pronouncing it different ways. I prefer to say Archmage than I prefer to say Archmage. But I prefer to say Archangel than Archangel. If you see what I mean. It feels like it works in different ways. Like it's appropriate in a different style. Just personal preference, says Ember. Perhaps. But you know how people can get with grammar and pronunciations. The High Elf Mage is just cool. I like it because it's just another version of the Archmage, which means another model for the Archmage. And there's quite a lot of those because you have the Renegade ones too. Now here's our Disney princess. This is the closest thing we have to a Disney princess. I really like her look though. Very forest green. She looks like she'd be a good second in command for Sylvanas, you know. That would carry out her orders. She looks about as close to a human could be within an elven sort of society. Like, she looks... If it wasn't for, like, the ears, she almost looks like she could be a human ranger or something like that. that's managed to sort of get trained by the High Elves, a bit like Nathanos did. He was a human ranger. Now this guy's really cool. Like, I just like their pose. I think they make for really good soldiers. There's particularly soldiers with like a sword. Because they just got such a cool sort of grandiose pose that indicates that they're very capable but very agile. Like, they're not sort of all about mass strength. They're about technique and skill. And that just is the vibe I get with these characters. He just looks like such a cool character to play. Very similar to Anasterian. Probably very much based off the same model. But just obviously fleshed out in a different fashion. Blood Elf Dragonhawk. Those look like Dragonhawks and Riders to me. The Dragonhawk feathers definitely stand out a lot more than the originals do. They've got the lance. That's got this kind of polearm spear to it. Kind of cool. Thank you very much to Ingrid's for the sub. Says love you, Witty. I love you as well. Thank you very much indeed. Close some of my tabs. They are starting to overcrowd up there. It's not really an issue though, is it? Is that just triggering your OCD? Oh, look at the little tail. That's very reminiscent. They got such a weird serpent-like look to them, don't they? When you look at them, they're kind of like a weird... It's like a mermaid. It's like a cross between a bird and a snake. When you get down to business. I like how they look from the side. Like, that guy looks like he's ready to attack. He's like pushing forward. So, very cool. Now, the Spellbreaker is one of the models I have an issue with. Because whilst it ticks all of the points, it misses out one. The armor. It feels too Spellcaster armor. Like cloth armor. He should be wearing plate. Or at least mail. I've pointed this out in previous videos and even done a comparison to the original Warcraft III artwork for him, where he is clearly wearing mail/plate armor instead of cloth. He can always have cloth underneath the mail or plate. The runes are very nice, yeah, I like that. But it does need like that bright red shield as well. But that could be because he could be a silver blood elf. It could be his colour. He could either be red or he could be silver. I'm not entirely sure how the scheme works. He looks on point though, like otherwise, like the over-the-top helmet, the shoulder pauldrons, the over-the-top shield, the cool-looking glaivish kind of polearm or double-edged sword. Very noble, very upright posture. I wish he wasn't wearing so much cloth. Like, they can wear like cloth from the waist downwards, because that works, and that's how they originally do it. But he just needs more plate at the top. Otherwise, you just stab him once and he's dead. Blood Mage Hero. So, quite dark again for the Blood Mage. So this is the hero that we get in melee. Unless you've maybe unlocked a skin for kael'thas. I'm not sure how that's going to work. He looks like on point, but he's just not wide and sort of powerful enough compared to Blood Mage. It's basically because we've been spoiled by kael'thas and how amazing he looks. This guy, if you didn't know of kael'thas, you would think this looks really good. But because you are aware of how kael'thas looks as the Blood Mage, this guy suddenly doesn't look like he compares. And that's part of the issue. So they just need to give him slightly more of a V shape. And oomph a little bit more power. A little bit wider. Blood Elf Swordsman. So once again, we get these really cool sort of Blood Elf grunt foot soldiers. That sort of have their own armor type. Because he's clearly different to the other ones we've seen beforehand. Different sort of one hand and shield. Like, it's just... They're really cool. They're really cool. They look like a lot of fun to sort of order around on the battlefield. No complaints there. Now we move on to the Priest. This is one that people feel has been a little bit too detailed. But I think it's kind of cool. They are, after all, Blood Elves. So they are a little bit pompous and up themselves. So they've got this extravagant garb that's pointed and elegant. And I really like his weapon because it's so different. I don't know if the original Priest weapon looks like that. I think it's more of a kind of square staff or something like that. A bit like Benediction or something from World of Warcraft. I could be wrong though. I can't remember off the top of my head. But either way, well trimmed fingernails. Yeah, I guess they are pretty trimmed. They got their own unique look, and I think that's important. And then last but not least, we have the Sorceress. She's definitely very beautiful. She's just floating, as you can see from her posture. So she's got that Jean Grey power look. She has been nerfed. I'm not going to say where, but you might be able to work it out. But it is 2019, and as part of the Me Too organization, I support this decision full-heartedly. I like the design though on the clothing. The eye, just everything about it just spells Spellcaster within control. Very cool, very commanding, very powerful. Very independent. What a woman. Okay. There you go, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Make sure to thumbs up the video if you do. And have a good day. Take care. This has been the Reforged High Elf and Blood Elf models for Sylvanas, Astarion, kael'thas, and more. Take care.